Mhm. Well, welcome everyone. It's 1 o'clock, so we are going to get started with the Tribal Colleges Extension Program Capacity Applications Notice of Funding Opportunity Technical Assistance webinar for fiscal year 2026. I'd like to welcome you to our webinar. This is for the Tribal Colleges Extension Program Capacity Applications NOFO, which was published on June 12th. Your tribal extension team includes myself as National Program Leader and Program Specialist Ara Cassidy. I've been with NIFA for a little over 3.5 years, and my portfolio consists of FERTEP, Federally Recognized Tribes Extension Program, the Tribal Colleges Extension Program Capacity Applications, and the Tribal Colleges Extension Program Special Emphasis. Ara, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you, Janice. My name is Ara Cassidy, and I am a program specialist for this program. And I actually work with the same portfolio than Janice, and recently added another program separate from Tribal Research Facility Act program. And I'm very excited to continue being here part of the extension program is dear to my heart. It's where I started my career in extension. So I am looking forward to read everyone's proposals and work on this panel. So thank you, Janice.
Thanks, Ara. During this technical assistance webinar, we will discuss the NOFO for TSEP-CA, in which applications are due on August 14th by 5 p.m. Eastern Time. The topics we will cover today include the NIFA overview, a program overview, application details and documents, the application evaluation process, tips for success, and any additional information and resources. There will be time for questions at the end of the presentation. Questions can be entered into the Q&A tab, or you can come off mute when prompted. You can always contact Ara or myself with any additional questions. This presentation is being recorded. We appreciate if you remain muted until the Q&A portion of the webinar, and I will have my camera off during this so that you can concentrate on the slides. The National Institute of Food and Agriculture is the extramural science funding agency within USDA's Research, Education, and Economics mission area. NIFA invests in and supports initiatives that ensure the long-term viability of agriculture. NIFA provides funding and strategic leadership for programs that ensure groundbreaking discoveries in agriculture-related sciences and technologies reach people who can put them into practice. These programs and initiatives will have the greatest impact when these programs put American farmers, ranchers, and foresters first. The TSEP-CA supports informal community-based extension projects that address agriculture, youth, economic development, healthy lifestyles, natural resources, or other topics important to tribal communities. The TSEP-CA is designed to support cooperative extension offices that provide practical science-based lifelong learning opportunities. Extension activities must be community-driven and address local needs. Examples of extension outreach activities may include agricultural productivity, improving food systems, community vitality, workforce and economic development, environmental quality, public health and well-being, engaging tribal youths, and preparing the next generation of tribal agriculture leaders. NIFA encourages projects involving innovative agricultural technologies, including artificial intelligence and leadership development skills. This NOFO begins a new 4-year continuation funding cycle. The project director and/or co-PD must attend one PD meeting during each project year. On December 30th, Secretary Rollins introduced priorities for future USDA-funded research and development through USDA Secretary's Memorandum 1078-020. These priorities of increasing profitability, expanding markets, protecting farms, promoting soil health, and improving human health reflect a focused effort to strengthen national security, protect U.S. agriculture, and support America's farmers, ranchers, and consumers. USDA recognizes programs and initiatives will have the greatest impact when these programs and initiatives put American farmers, ranchers, and foresters first by solving the most pressing challenges they face, protecting America's food, fuel, and fiber supply to enhance national security, supporting production of healthy and safe food for consumers, expanding and developing domestic markets, training the next generation of agriculturalists, and fueling innovation to keep American farmers at the forefront of productivity. Key information for this program, the program code is NK. The program code name is TCEP, TCEP. The assistance listing number 10.517. This This program is for extension projects and it is a standard grant type. Additional key information, the application deadline is August 14th, 2026 at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. The grant duration is 48 months and we anticipate awarding 35 awards. The minimum and maximum amount, so the amount that you will apply for, is $300,000. Applications may only be submitted by colleges and universities designated as 1994 institutions by legislation. You can visit NIFA's Land Grant University directory to view a list of NIFA land grant colleges and universities. Land grant colleges and universities may subcontract to organizations not eligible to apply, provided such organizations are necessary for the conduct of the project. USDA will not accept competitive applications for grants and cooperative agreements submitted for dangerous gain-of-function research as defined in Section 8 of Executive Order 14292. In addition, please be sure to review pertinent executive orders, paying particular attention to those signed in January of 2025. As I've stated, the application deadline for capacity applications is August 14th at 5 p.m. Eastern. Please try to submit the previous day in case you encounter errors uploading. Also, please note the deadline time is Eastern Time, so plan accordingly. Applications will not be accepted after 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Duplicate or multiple submissions are not allowed. NIFA will disqualify both applications if an applicant submits duplicate or multiple submissions. Duplicate submissions are those proposals submitted to a specific program more than once. For example, a proposal is submitted twice because you weren't sure it went through the first time, or you saw that some of the attachments were not PDF files. NIFA will accept only one application, which is generally the most recent submission unless otherwise instructed by the institution. Multiple submissions are identical proposals submitted to multiple grant programs. For example, you cannot submit the same proposal for Tribal College's Extension Capacity, Tribal College's Education Program, Federally Recognized Tribes Extension Program, Extension Special Emphasis, AFRI, etc. Each application to a program has to be unique. This is an extension project type. Extension projects conduct programs and activities that deliver science-based knowledge and informal educational programs to people, enabling them to make practical decisions. Extension projects must address one or more of the following key strategic actions: support non-formal education to increase food and agricultural literacy of youths and adults, promote science-based agricultural literacy by increasing understanding and use of food and agricultural science data, information, and programs, build science-based capability in people to engage audiences and enable informed decision-making, develop new applications of instructional tools and curriculum structures that increase technical competency and ensure global competitiveness, offer non-formal learning programs that increase accessibility to new audiences, and develop programs that increase public knowledge and citizen engagement, leading to actions that protect or enhance the nation's food supply, agricultural productivity, community vitality, and/or public health and well-being. Extension projects are informal, community-based projects. Funding will not be awarded for formal education programs. No degree granting programs, programs that are only student focused, or that are for recruiting students, etc. These projects should lead, your extension projects should lead to measurable documented changes in learning actions or conditions. The standard grant type supports original extension projects managed by its own personnel. Grant funds are not required to be shared with other project partners. Allowable costs. With prior approval in accordance with the cost principles set forth in Subpart E of the 2 CFR 200, grant funds may be used to purchase equipment or for improvements, alterations, renovations, or repairs to land, buildings, or equipment deemed necessary to retrofit existing spaces and resources in order to carry out a funded project under these grants. Requests to use grant funds for such purposes must be aligned with the goals and objectives of the project and require prior approval from the national program leader. The following costs are not permitted. There are no indirect costs authorized for this NOFO. Entertainment, including tickets or shows to shows or sporting events, meals, except when provided to maintain the continuity of a meeting, alcoholic beverages, costs associated with banquets and award ceremonies, expenses not directly related to the program, for example, childcare services, kitchen help, etc., incentives to plan, acquire, or construct a building or facility or to acquire land, Also, procurement of unmanned aircraft systems to process, store, or transmit federal information as defined in OMB Circular A130 are unallowed. Those would be drones. Please consult the 2 CFR 200, the Code of Federal Regulations, and NIFA Policy Guide for information on unallowable costs, or contact me or the administrative point of contact if you have any questions. For cost sharing or matching, there is no match required for the TSEP CA, so matching resources will not be factored into the review process. NIFA is now requiring the use of Science CV to create biosketches and current and pending forms for key personnel. All key personnel must complete and certify the common form for biographical sketch and the common form for current and pending support using Science CV and submit the certified forms at time of application. Key personnel are essential individuals whose expertise, authority, and responsibilities are critical to the success of the program or award. This includes organizational leaders, program managers, principal investigators, and other staff with substantial involvement. Science CV gathers and compiles information on expertise, employment, education, and professional accomplishments. And you will receive a copy of the slide um, or the recording, and so you can utilize this link to Science CV. Biosketches and current and pending forms must be certified for all key personnel, and the certified PDFs should be included with the application package. Key components of the application include the project summary or abstract, project narrative, data management plan, and budget. Additional documents include the bibliography and reference cited, the equipment form, facilities and other resources, and letters of commitment from tribal partners. Please do not include general letters of support, for example, from those who are not committing to a specific role in the project. All documents, forms, attachments must be in PDF format. Documents submitted as Word or Excel files will not be included in the application package sent to panel reviewers, and the application will be scored without these items. Now we'll talk about each section of the grant application. First is the project summary abstract. The project summary must show how the project goals align with the goals of the TSEP CA. The project summary must include the project title, a concise project description not to exceed 250 words, a statement of project objectives and the methods used to achieve those objectives, and a statement regarding the potential impact of the project within the tribal community. The project narrative is limited to 15 pages of text and will be strictly enforced. In addition, there should be a 1.5-inch spacing between lines and 1-inch margins. A 12-point Times New Roman font should be used. Up to 3 additional pages for figures and tables can be included. And your tables may be single-spaced with font no smaller than 11-point Times New Roman. Applicants should organize the project narrative using the sections below and include the section titles as prompts for each section. Each of the 9 sections of the project narrative includes questions or prompts to guide your writing. The following 3 slides provides a brief overview of the expectations of each section. Please be sure to review the project narrative in the NOFO for additional prompts. The evaluation of proposals is tied directly to the project narrative. The first section is the introduction, where you will provide a brief introduction to the 1994 institution and the tribal community to be served. Describe the current problem, situation, or opportunity to be addressed and explain why it's important. Discuss the commitment of the applicant's institution and key personnel to execute the project, and describe how the extension project supports the institution's strategic plan. The second section is rationale and significance. You will explain how the project addresses community needs and concerns and enhances participants' lives. Describe the significance of the extension project to U.S. agriculture, noting any critical impact on human health and well-being and rural communities. You can also address any of the research topics that have been outlined by the USDA, which are provided in the NOFO. Community and audience analysis provide evidence that the applicant has gathered input from the tribe, community organizations, individual stakeholders, advisory groups, etc., to understand and align with the needs and concerns of the community. The objectives and anticipated outcomes provide a clear, concise, and logically numbered list of project objectives. Describe the anticipated outcomes associated with each of the project objectives. The approach. You will clearly and concisely state the activities the project team will implement to accomplish each of the stated objectives. You will also describe how resources and personnel will be used to conduct the project, as well as outline the process for review by an IRB, Institutional Review Board, or IACUC, Institutional Animal Care and Use Committee, if activities involving human subjects or vertebrate animals are planned at any time during the proposed project. So with the IRB, if activities involving humans are planned in the project must be reviewed by an institutional review board. Only the IRB can exempt a project. All projects that involve human subjects must either have approval from the organization's IRB before issuance of a NIFA award, or must affirm that the IRB or an appropriate knowledgeable authority previously designated by the organization, generally not the PD, has declared the research exempt from IRB review in accordance with the applicable subsection as established in Section 101B of the Common Rule. IACUC, if the project involves extension activities using vertebrate animals under the jurisdiction or control of the institution, you will need to outline the process for review by an institutional animal care and use committee. Certification on the research and related other project information page should be checked if you are planning to utilize college-owned or college-controlled vertebrate animals. Please see the NIFA Grants Application Guide for additional information. And one additional thing I should note is that activities involving humans are not just research activities. So if you are planning to survey, interview, interact with humans, the box on that research and related other project information page should be checked. Collaborative relationships. Please detail any collaborative work or plans for cooperation with a federally recognized Tribes Extension Program Office, 1862 or 1890 Cooperative Extension Service Office, Tribal Outreach Office, or other entities. The project timeline is where you will illustrate the progress and successful implementation of the project over the 4-year award period by providing an integrated timeline of project activities, major milestones, assessment, and reporting. Please plan for a tentative project start date in October of 2026 and develop the project timeline accordingly. If key or other personnel must be hired to advance the project, address the timeline for hiring and how the project will progress in the event of delayed hiring. Also, address the timeline for IRB and/or IACUC review if applicable. For the project timeline, the use of a table or logic model is acceptable for this section. The project evaluation explains how project activities and outcomes will be measured to determine the extent to which the stated objectives have been achieved. They will describe how quantitative metrics, feedback from project stakeholders, and participant success stories will be used to demonstrate the impact of the project on the target audience and convey value to stakeholders. Also, there will be the summary of previous work. So you will provide a summary of previous work that describes how how this project builds upon the successes of the previous project, how stakeholder feedback from the prior extension project is incorporated into this project, what the key personnel learned from the previous project, how this project addresses any realized or perceived pitfalls seen in the previous project, will describe the extent to which the project efficiently used the allocated budget to meet project objectives, and discuss any lapse in service and describe any actions taken to address continuity of service to the tribe and tribal community. And so those were all sections within the project narrative. Another part of the application is the data management plan. Investigators must provide a detailed, but not to exceed 2 pages, data management plan, which includes the expected data type, the data format, data storage and preservation, data sharing, protection, and public access, roles, and responsibilities. You can review the data management plan for NIFIF-funded research, education, and extension projects. The budget. Please prepare a budget and budget justification for each of the 4 years of the project at $300,000 per year. The cumulative 4-year budget is $1,200,000. So you should have 4 annual budget sheets within your application. And then your cumulative budget should total $1.2 million. Indirect costs are not permitted. The budget justification is a detailed budget narrative that should be provided for each project year. There should be a direct correlation between the items in the budget, the activities described in the project narrative, and the budget justification. Each item in the budget must be justified in the proposal. Costs, for example, salaries and wages, materials, equipment, travel, etc., must be broken down and itemized rather than shown as lump sums. While budget should account for necessary travel, virtual or hybrid meetings may be considered. Subawards. If you have any subawards, you must include a budget and budget narrative for each year the subaward is part of the grant. Project director meetings. The project director or co-PD must attend one PD meeting during each project year. The extension program PD meeting is generally held in conjunction with the Falcon Conference. Reasonable travel expenses must be included as part of the project budget. Budget and cost effectiveness are incredibly important. Please do not provide lump sums with general descriptions. For example, PD meeting $1,500. Materials and extension activities, $5,000, etc. Please break down costs for each. For example, a PD meeting will include airfare or mileage or rental car, per diem, lodging, registration, etc. So please be sure to break those down. NIFA only accepts electronic submission of applications through grants.gov. Once again, application documents must be in PDF file format to be accepted by NIFA. Before you click the Submit button in Workspace Applications, you'll see a checklist of required forms and their completion status. All required items must show as complete before submission is available. Also, please know that all PDF files must not include spaces or special characters in their name. That will also not work within the system, and those files will not be included in the application package. So now we'll talk a little bit about the application evaluation process. Applications are assigned for review to at least 3 reviewers with expertise in the proposed topic. Reviewers will produce individual reviews of each application, evaluating the strengths and weaknesses. These written reviews are used to begin panel discussions with other reviewers serving on the peer review panel. Through these discussions, peer review panelists come to consensus on the final rating and ranking of applications. The criteria below are not equal in merit, but are listed in descending order of importance. And this is what the peer review panel will use to evaluate proposals. The following 3 slides will give a brief overview of the evaluation criteria. Please be sure to review the project evaluation section in the NOFO for additional information. The evaluation of proposals is tied directly to the project narrative. The first evaluation criteria is the potential for advancing the quality of tribal extension. This assesses the project's likelihood of having an impact upon and advancing the quality of food, agriculture, natural resources, workforce development, and youth development by strengthening institutional capacities to meet clearly delineated needs in tribal communities. Proposed approach and project management evaluates the soundness of the proposed approach, including objectives, methodology, timetable, expected outcomes, and identification and dissemination of project impacts. Project objectives, activities, and outcomes are clearly described, appropriate, aligned, and relevant to participants, tribal community, and Indian country. A clear plan is articulated for project management. A plan for IRB and or IACUC approval is included if applicable. Key personnel, institutional support, and capacity building gauges the adequacy of personnel and institutional support required to advance and sustain extension outreach capacity. Assesses the adequacy of the number and qualifications of key personnel and other personnel involved in the project. The institution is committed to the project, has adequate institutional resources available to execute the project, and plans for project continuation or expansion beyond the period of USDA support. Budget and cost effectiveness gauges the extent to which the budget clearly allocates sufficient resources to carry out extension activities that will lead to desired outcomes. Budget line items are sufficiently itemized and justified to determine the necessity and reasonableness of the costs to carry out project activities and achieve project objectives. The extent to which the project maximizes the use of limited resources and optimizes educational value for the dollar is included. Project evaluation assesses the proposed project evaluation and performance monitoring plans, including evaluation methods, impact assessment, and communicating feedback from stakeholders. Data management plan evaluates the soundness of the institution's data management plan. The data management plan is appropriate, clearly described, and feasible. The timeline of competitive programs is usually an 8 to 9 month process, not including the writing and submission of the NOFO for review by administration, which can take an additional 4 to 6 months. If awarded, your responsiveness to inquiries and requests will be crucial to a timely award process. So here we have just a few tips for success. You will most definitely want to review the project narrative section in the NOFO to review the sections and the prompts and use that as your guide to writing. Also, review the evaluation criteria to learn what panel reviewers are looking for in the proposal. Okay, so do you understand the requirements of the NOFO? Are you familiar with the application review process? Do you have all of the needed resources? You will want to prepare a budget with your strong justification, fill out all forms completely and correctly, use tables and figures to help illustrate important points where necessary, and write for both the expert and the novice, as well as writing clearly and logically. Application writing is a complex process and involves several steps. Planning for writing an application needs a strategic approach. The planning checklist can help identify and prioritize several steps, like locating the appropriate program, assembling a team, creating a timeline, completing all required forms and registration, completing the required documents, editing and converting to PDF, and then submitting on time. The application package may need several documents as mentioned in the NOFO. Complete an accurate application packages help reviewers in understanding the intended project and its requirements. Create a list of documents needed from the NOFO. Mark your documents as complete as you go along. The checklist will also help when you are submitting the documents in the system, and you can mark them off as they're submitted. Don't forget to review your documents and make sure all attached documents are in PDF format before clicking Submit in grants.gov. For additional information, you can use the NIFA Data Gateway to find funded awards. So in the advanced search, you will use the program code NK to search for previous Tribal College Extension Program capacity projects. There are also other grant resources such as funding opportunities, competitive grants flowchart, NIFA training resources, NIFA policy guide, indirect costs, and a guide for the preparation and submission of NIFA applications via grants.gov, which are linked in the PowerPoint. Questions can always be emailed to myself or Ara. You can also send questions to our shared mailbox at NIFA Tribal Programs at USDA.gov. And so with that, the slide contains contact information for individuals with disabilities to request reasonable accommodations, that language access services will be provided to limited English proficient individuals upon request, and that anyone wishing to file a complaint can utilize the phone number, fax number, or postal mailing address listed on the slide. And so now I am going to end the slideshow, and I will come on camera, and we can take any questions that you may have at this time.
We have a question in the chat, Janice, from Linda.
Okay.
She's like, what is the minimum number of objectives that should be implemented in the grant application?
Um, I don't know. There isn't really a minimum or a maximum number. What you have for objectives has to fit the project that you're doing. I will say that, I have seen applications that will have, for example, it will list 4 or 5 goals, and each one of those goals may have 4 or 5 objectives. And, so by the time you get done, you have 25 things that you're trying to accomplish. But, it really depends on how you're accomplishing them. Are you doing everything every year? If that's the case, that's 25 objectives would be a lot, because you also have to think of, doing all of that stuff as well as reporting. So collecting all the data and then preparing the annual progress report for that. Um, Generally, it also depends on, if you're looking at focusing on a specific set of objectives in the first year and then building on that in the second year, the third year, the fourth year, right? So it really kind of depends on how your project is set up, but you need to do what is manageable for the staff that you have, for what your community wants and needs. So it really is a very personal, kind of a personal thing when it comes to writing your application. Other questions?
Hello?
Hello,
Hi.
Adrian. What's your question?
Hi. I have a few, if you don't mind. It's just like it's gonna be almost like a yes or no questions.
Okay,
Um,
I will
Number one,
try.
yes. So the number one is, the CV in the sign CV.
Correct.
Can we use
Yes.
this? Can we use the same that we use in the research grant from last month? So we
Yes.
don't need to go to the system again. I mean,
Only if you have changes. So the nice thing about Science CV is that that is the same thing that you will use. You've already developed it and certified it. Unless you have changes to it, then you would go in, enter those changes, and recertify. Um, so so if you have no changes, that would be the same bio sketch that you would put in. Um, Possibly you're going to have to update the current and pending form um, because you may not have put in the tribal colleges extension program under pending. So that may need to be updated.
okay. The other one is we are not partnering with anyone, any other, institution for this grant. So the letters of support, we're planning to request this from our advisory board. And the idea is the members of the advisory board will provide us letters of commitment of participate in the evaluation of the grant. Is that something that sounds okay?
Um, it really kind of depends. They're not required. Generally, the letters of commitment might be for things from actual um, partners within the community. For example, let's say you have a tribal farmers market and they are going to, they support your project and they are going to allow you to have a booth every week at that. You don't necessarily need to have, a letter of commitment from um, a letter of commitment or participation from your college. Um, One would assume that just by, being able to apply that they um, that they commit. But if it's something that you feel that would be important for the reviewers to, to see, by all means, you can submit that.
Okay. The other one is well, it's more like related to the matching part because we are putting in the budget all the aspects related to operations and salaries and so on, and everything related to um, equipment, materials, and so on. That will be
Yes.
covered by endowment. So the idea here is in order to have more funding for personnel, we are asking the president to use endowment funds to cover other expenses like equipment and materials and so on. Now, according to what the slide was saying, um, that would not consider in the evaluation per se. It's going to be just, we can mention it, but I still thinking, is advantage to do that? It could be in detriment of the grant proposal if we put zero in materials and program supplies, for instance.
Um, well, with that, there is no match required. So you don't have to match. I think you have to look at it that, within this $300,000 budget, there should be um, salary and wages, there should be materials and supplies, there should be travel, potentially participant support costs. Depending on what it is that you're doing, Possibly then some money might come from endowment, but then that would be on the side. And I'd be happy to talk to you more about this specifically about your project. We can set up a Teams meeting to talk about what you're thinking about doing.
Yes, yeah, I would appreciate that.
Yep.
Okay, those are my questions. I don't want to take the opportunity for other to ask. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we also, I see, have
Yeah, Wendy.
another yes, question from Wendy. She says, what is the threshold for needing IRB? Would that include an anonymous pre and post survey for a workshop or only for in-depth interviews and analysis? So anytime you are working with humans, right, there's on the research and related form, it will ask specifically, are you working with humans? And you will check that yes box. Okay, so since everybody in Extension Project is working with humans, that should be checked. Now, the threshold for needing IRB approval will actually come from your institution or from whatever IRB you use. Okay, so the IRB will exempt your project or not, depending on what it is that you're going to do. So I really can't answer that because some institutional review boards, may say, hey, that is perfectly fine to do surveys, any kind. However, if you're going to do those in-depth interviews and you're going to have people on camera or talking about very sensitive issues, then that has to go through the process. So it really is up to the institutional review board.
We have Latana have her hand raised.
Sure.
You can come up mute, Latana.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, this is Tom Allen from Oglala Lakota College.
Yes. Hello, Tom.
Hi, is there a starting date?
We are asking that the project timeline starts with October 1st. I don't know, starting date will really kind of determine, there are a lot of things that potentially go into determining start date, potentially a government shutdown, whether or not, an institution has all of their required forms and justifications. If there's anything that has to be updated after panel review, any questions that the panel needs to have addressed. But we are asking for a common start date on your project timeline of October 1st.
Good.
And
That makes
then
it
we'll get them processed as soon as possible.
okay. That makes it easier rather than starting on 8/1 or 9/1. So that's
Yes.
great. Yeah. Okay.
Yes. So it should be October 1st.
And then where is the slideshow available?
The slideshow will be available after this. So then I will send it out when I send out the recording, which should be available next week.
Thank you.
Sure.
And this one you don't have to answer, and you probably won't, but I know you knew it was coming. Do you have any idea when the education one, I'm not calling it equity, education grant will come out?
I do not at this
Okay.
time. It is
Sorry.
still under review. We are hoping soon, but it is still under review.
Okay. Sorry, I had to ask.
That's quite all right. Not a problem.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Okay, and then Cynthia asked, do the extension applications need to address DEI or are we exempt from this requirement? There is an executive order, and I know that many of you have probably been contacted in the past regarding DEI language. So I would, for the sake of not having to remediate DEI language, However, keep in mind that with Secretary's Memo 1078010, tribes are not considered DEI. So there is like maybe a little difference in the question that you're asking. So tribes are not considered DEI, but you will most definitely want to review executive orders from January of 2025, and make sure that that your application does not address the things that are in there. Some of those things include climate change, um, diversity, equity, inclusion, accessibility, um, gender. So those are some things. And if you have other questions about that, please let me know, because I'd be happy to set up a meeting and discuss the executive orders with you.
Janice, we have Latana hand has been up for a little bit, so I'm not sure
Oh,
if she can come off mute and ask her question.
okay.
I
Hi,
think
Latana. Can you come off mute?
if it's not working, you can always type it on the chat box.
Well, it says mute.
Oh, there you go. We
Oh,
can hear
there
you.
you are, Latana. Hello? Latana, click your microphone again. If it has a line through it, that means you're muted. Okay, Latana, maybe you can put your question in the chat and we can get to it. I see that Brenda has a question. She's asking if cultural items are no longer allowed. They are allowed. As a tribal college, you can most definitely, do culturally responsive activities. Beading workshops, other things. And so, no, that is not, and that's part of what the secretary's memo addresses, is that, it's not considered, any of the cultural things are not considered DEI. So you can include them. And then, Amy, can somebody provide a link to the executive orders? They are actually on, I might be able to put a link in the chat, or I can send that to you, Amy. I don't have it off the top of my head, but you can go in and Google, executive orders, and it will take you to a website that will list them all. You'll want to go back to the very beginning, because there are many executive orders, but the ones that we're mostly concerned with are those that are, in the very first part of 2025.
Marjorie has her hand up. She does also have a question in the Q&A related about food is allowed for continuity of the program. If we had an all-day workshop, could we provide lunch?
You could potentially provide lunch at an all-day workshop, provided that having participants, leave for that time might mean that they would not come back. Or if there is not any food, readily available so that participants can go out and get a quick lunch and come back. Or if you're using that food as part of that workshop, or you're having a working lunch. Those are some examples of when food could be used for an all-day workshop. And Wendy, you can definitely. I understand that it doesn't include beading workshops, but that is one thing um, that those are culturally relevant things to tribes, and so we're not going to disallow those. If you'd like some more clarification, I'd be happy to set up a meeting with you.
Seem to have Marjorie, do you have a further question? You can come off mute.
That's me?
And then Adrian, yeah, if we have also, I'm not sure if those are legacy hands, the other ones.
Okay. Can I ask, because it's related to what you just mentioned?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yes. So, I mean, I'm just gonna give you a specific. We want to implement in the extension program an agribusiness training, and part of this agribusiness training is the experience for the participants to experience a farmer market sort of set. So the question is it this, I mean, are we allowed to practice marketing, like selling products that are derived from the activities in the farm that's supported by the extension grant?
Oh, that's a good question. So if you generate any funds from selling any products, for example, at a farmer's market, any income back to the program must be utilized before grant funds are utilized. So you can certainly sell, but that project income has to come back into the program and it has to be used first.
So just to clarify that, we sell the farmers sell the product, and the earnings of that selling, it will come back to the program in order to be used by the program. Is that correct?
Correct, yes.
Okay. Okay. So we are not dealing with a situation where we are using the program for a commercial purpose, as long as it's part of the program.
Correct, yes.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
That question made me very nervous, but thank you. Thank you.
No, that's okay. Hi, Latana, are you still with us? If you want, you can always email me and ask your question as well. We're here to answer, we're here to answer any questions that you may have. I will be out of the office tomorrow. So if you have questions and you email me and I don't get back to you tomorrow, I will most certainly answer questions as soon as possible. But I'm more than happy to, get on to a Teams call with you, to email back and forth with questions, whatever you prefer. Any other questions?
I'm not seeing anything anymore in the chat or the Q&A. And I think we're good.
Okay. Well, then I thank you very much for your attendance today. I will reiterate, please review the NOFO, both the sections for the project narrative and the application sections, as well as the evaluation criteria. Please make sure that you put all documents into PDF format. Okay, and please reach out to either Ara or myself if you have any questions. We look forward to receiving and reading all of your applications. One additional thing is that if you have not yet submitted a no-cost extension for your current project, please do so as soon as possible. So then that way we can get those no cost extensions processed before it gets really busy in the awards management division. Okay, thank you all. It was a pleasure having you here today, and we'll talk to you soon, I hope. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.